The final Sunday of the 1990 regular season. The Vikings at home against one of the NFL's best, the defending Super Bowl champion San Francisco 49ers. The game proved to be a tidy summation of the Vikings' entire season. Tough, hard-fought, closely contested. A dramatic contest of ebb and flow in which the lead changed hands several times. When it was over, Minnesota had lost for the 10th time in a strange, bizarre season of twists and turns. Defeat came, as it had so frequently, in the final moments. For Jerry Burns, a man who has seen it all in a quarter century in the National Football League, it was not the best of times. But Burns has been around long enough to know that 1990 was an aberration. A cruel hoax played out by the football gods on an unsuspecting team. Defending your Central Division title is tough enough without losing your starting quarterback, a man who's taken you to the edge of a Super Bowl. And the league's Defensive Player of the Year in 1989, the rock of a unit that was the NFL's best for 2 straight seasons. The Vikings remain a talented team. Another division title is well within their reach. Leave 1990 behind. It was nothing more than a detour on the road to a championship. '90 began with high expectations. The goal was more than control of the NFC Central.
Let's go, brother, let's go.
It was mastery over the entire conference.
Huddle up.
And this team was good enough to achieve that. The regular season opened in Kansas City. The challenge of a new year would get an early test. One measuring stick is veteran leadership. And Wade Wilson and Steve Jordan stepped forward to help erase a 14-point deficit. Herschel Walker showcased his versatility, producing 200 yards of total offense. It was a strong performance on the road against a tough AFC opponent. The problem, Minnesota lost by 3 on a Chiefs fourth-quarter touchdown. Good teams bounce back, and the Vikings did just that. The New Orleans Saints never had a chance. The defense intercepted 4 passes, and Wilson fired 3 touchdowns for the second consecutive week, as Minnesota easily disposed of a solid Saints team. weeks into the season, all appeared normal. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But a trip to Chicago was the beginning. For 1 month, the Vikings would be caught in their version of the Twilight Zone. It was truly theater of the absurd. Last-second defeats, injuries to key players, sure-handed receivers losing their grip, penalties wiping out big plays by the Vikings defense, and to top it all off, the unluckiest bounce of the 1990 season. Four games, 4 losses, a month of madness. Yet this walk on the wild side did forge a path of promise, especially at quarterback. An injured Wilson paved the way for Rich Ganon, the fourth-year pro who had thrown only 21 passes in his NFL career. 1 week after the Vikings left Chicago's Soldier Field with a last-second defeat, Ganon made his first start against Tampa Bay. It brought a sense of excitement, a flair for the dramatic. Most importantly, it featured 2 fourth-quarter touchdown passes that spoke volumes about Ganon's poise and leadership. A week later, another gutsy performance by the young quarterback again had the Vikings on the brink of victory. But a third straight loss could not be averted. Then came a visit to Philadelphia, the final destination on the Vikings' trip through the outer limits. This one was really unbelievable. Just watch. Minnesota scored on big plays, hammered Randall Cunningham, and generally took it right to a highly regarded Eagles team. It appeared the Vikings had bounced back with a vengeance. But appearances can be deceiving. When it was over, all Minnesota could do was ponder its fate. A team with the experience of the Vikings is well aware that the NFL season is a marathon, not a sprint. After 6 losses in their first 7 games, it was time to take a deep breath, regroup, and move forward. Throwing in the towel was not an option. Not when you've been there before and know what it takes to win, and certainly not when you possess some of the finest talent in the NFL. An offensive line of Gary Zimmerman, Kurt Loudermilk, Todd Kalis, Tim Irwin, and Randall McDaniel, consistent and durable in their second season as a starting 5. A receiving trio of the 2 Carters, Anthony and Chris, and Hassan Jones, who put together his finest season in 1990. As the Vikings began the second half of their season, they needed the defense to step up. Sure, Keith Millard had been lost for the year, but the time for explanations and excuses had long passed. It was All-Pro safety Joey Browner who met the challenge. Browner's third-quarter touchdown brought Minnesota all the way back from a 16-point deficit. Yet what could not be forgotten was a play made by Rich Ganon midway through the second period. The Vikings trailed 16-0 at the time and faced a 3rd and 17. Ganon's remarkable effort may well have been the single most important play of Minnesota's season, followed closely by this flea flicker, which gave the Vikings their first victory in 7 weeks. The free fall was over. The following week, the defense again took it into the end zone as the Vikings avenged an earlier loss to the Detroit Lions. On the road in Seattle, Herschel Walker's explosive burst up the middle in the fourth quarter was the turning point as Minnesota won for the 3rd straight game. Quickly and decisively, the Vikings had vaulted into the playoff picture. Now they headed home. 2 games against Central Division opponents awaited. If they could capture both, that first step, a 500 record, would be achieved. Mike Ditka's Big Bad Bears, with only 1 loss through the season's first 11 weeks, were victim number 1. Right from the opening kickoff, it was no contest. For Herschel Walker, it was the beginning of a 2-touchdown afternoon. The Viking defense also wasted little time. Al Noga forced a fumble on Chicago's first possession. It was part of a dominating effort that totally shut down Neil Anderson and the Bears' vaunted running game. Rich Ganon directed a mistake-free offense, utilizing the short passing game to perfection and mixing in an occasional scramble for a key first down. When Ganon hit Anthony Carter near the end of the first half, the score read Minnesota 34, Chicago 3.
I told you don't get off today, big boy.
This was Viking football at its best. Precise, powerful, and potent.
Leo, nice motion.
The Bears were hammered into submission. Their quarterback, Jim Harbaugh, could not withstand Minnesota's relentless pass rush. He was sacked 7 times, turning the ball over twice. When Mike Merriweather stripped the ball from Neil Anderson and raced into the end zone for Minnesota's final touchdown, the rout was complete. The final tally, the Vikings 41, Chicago 13. A good sign, to be sure. But for Jerry Burns, one impressive victory does not make for redemption. The Vikings had no margin for error. They would have to continue their assault against the Green Bay Packers. For the second time in 2 weeks, a Central Division rival ran smack into a brick wall. The Vikings defense registered 5 more sacks, adding to a total that by season's end would lead the NFC for the second consecutive year. And for the first time in nearly 3 months, they kept the opposing offense out of the end zone. 3 interceptions played a major role as the defense tossed its second shutout of the season. and scored a touchdown for the 4th time in the last 5 games. Five victories in a row. The reflection of a veteran team that understands very well that the NFL schedule is a long, arduous journey full of peaks and valleys. The Vikings were now 6-6. A season on the edge had become a season of promise. The equation was simple. The Vikings could not afford another loss and expect to remain in contention for a wild card playoff spot. They would continue to need big plays from their big-time players. Men like Joey Browner, who picked off 5 passes to help fuel the defensive resurgence. And wide receiver Anthony Carter, whose 4 touchdown catches heated up the offense during the 5-game winning streak. Number 6 would not be easy. The eventual Super Bowl champion Giants on the road. Football as it was meant to be played. Power against power. Strength against strength. After 3 quarters, the Vikings had steamrolled their way to a 15-10 lead. But their strength of will would not be enough. In the final 15 minutes, mistakes haunted Minnesota as the Giants came back to win. It was as tough a loss as any the Vikings had suffered. While the playoffs remained within reach, Burnsy knew that such a debilitating defeat late in the season would be difficult to overcome. Unfortunately, he was right. The next week at Tampa, Wade Wilson's 374 yards passing off the bench could not prevent the Vikings' 8th loss. The struggle to get back into contention had taken its toll. There was little left to give as the stretch drive unfolded. When the world champion San Francisco 49ers strutted into the Metrodome to close out 1990, the Vikings stood tall. They gave no ground in a gritty performance that belied the disappointment of a frustrating season. Somehow, it seemed only fitting that Minnesota lost with but a half-minute remaining. It was the final bump on what was expected to be the fast track to the playoffs. On a road filled with potholes, one Viking made his final stop. Scott Studwell navigated his last rite of passage in 1990. His career in Minnesota spanned 3 decades. He learned the pro game at the old Met, then refined his play indoors, under the dome. He was the bridge that connected the different eras of outstanding Viking defense. From the Purple People Eaters of Eller, Page, Marshall, and Sutherland, to the present unit of Millard, Dolman, Noga, and Thomas. Through it all, number 55 was the constant, the rock in the middle who squashed opposing running backs. And possessed just enough of a mean streak to send the necessary message. Studwell was a master at the art of anticipation. Few were in the right place at the right time as often as this middle linebacker. For 14 seasons, Studwell proudly wore the Viking colors. He was a true warrior, a consummate professional. He leaves the National Football League knowing that he gave it his best, and that, after all, is all anyone can ask. What remains in Minnesota is a fine football team, a cast of characters as talented as any in the NFL. Yes, expectations went unfulfilled in 1990, but don't let the record mislead you. This is not a team in decline. These Vikings suffered the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, and you can be certain in 1991 that they will take arms against them. Valuable lessons were learned that will only make the Vikings better. Expect nothing. Work for everything. This is a team capable of dismantling anyone in pro football. The challenge will be to prove that the 1990 season was nothing more than a detour on the road to a championship.